Hello, and welcome to AI news that you should know about. I'm your host, Ashley Coffey.
And I'm Daniel Hill. Every week, in about 12 minutes, we cover the AI news stories that you need to know about.
All right, so let's dive in. Our top story this week is CloudFlare versus AI bots, a game changer for publishers. So, if you didn't hear about this in the news, now's your chance. Millions of websites, including major publishers, can now block AI bots from scraping their content without permission. This is happening a lot. So, key highlights out of this that you should know about: Cloudflare launched this tech to block AI crawlers to protect creator content. And if you don't know about Cloudflare, do a deep dive research because Cloudflare is literally the infrastructure behind 90% of our internet. Their future plans include a pay per crawl model letting creators charge AI firms, which is really interesting to see how this new business revenue model is working with AI and creators and people. But some experts argue that stronger legal protections are still needed. I would agree with that. And publishers are hailing this as a major step forward towards fair value exchange and accountability for AI companies. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that one, Daniel?
So, I think we talked last week on the show about how if you're a content publisher, there's really nothing you can do right now to prevent your content from being scraped by AI. And
Hmm.
this is a thing that is fairly easily done. If you're in control of your website, you can work with Cloudflare and you can determine that bots should not crawl. But I also love the idea of micropayments. Micropayments are a concept where, if you're not familiar, if you're listening, you would pay maybe a quarter to read an article on the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. Instead of subscribing for $10 a month or $20 a month, you just pay a micropayment for that article that you want to read. And I think that's a very interesting business model. I haven't seen too many organizations doing that, but it makes sense. If you are determining that this page is worth X amount for the AI bot to crawl, great, then pay me and you can access that page. So I think there's a lot of value there. And I'm excited for Cloudflare to be able to give people a way to prevent their content from being used if they don't want it to be. What do you think?
I love it. Yes, agreed. I think we need to see more of this out there to protect creator content because more and more often people are getting their ideas stolen and their content ripped off. And in this digital age, ideas are everything and content creation is everything. So I do think people need to be protected from AI stealing content.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so diving into the next headline here. This is something that blew my mind, and I knew this day was coming. I knew this day was coming. Facebook is asking to use Meta AI on photos in your camera roll that you haven't yet shared. Wow, red flags flying all over the place. And so let's dive into it. Facebook is asking its users to access their phone's camera roll to automatically suggest AI generated edited versions of their photos, including ones that haven't been uploaded to Facebook yet. So the feature is being suggested when people are creating a new story on the app. And as the pop up message that they get explains, when you click allow, you let Facebook generate new ideas from your camera roll, things like collages, recaps, AI restylings, or photo themes. And to work, Facebook says it will upload media from your camera roll to its cloud on an ongoing basis, meaning its servers, based on information like time, location, or themes. So just remember that when you're clicking on allow, you are agreeing to Meta's terms of service. And this also allows your media and your facial features, i.e., biometric data, your eyes, the view of your face, everything. It allows that to be analyzed by Meta's AI. And the company will additionally use the date and presence of people or objects in your photos to craft its creative ideas. So, this is a really good example of the slippery slope that comes with sharing our personal media with AI providers. I think of it as they're just data. It's data repository, data troves for companies. So this is interesting, and people are saying it's really giving them an unfair AI advantage in the race of AI, being able to tap into users' camera rolls like that. And unfortunately for end users and these tech companies rush to stay ahead, it's not always clear what they're agreeing to when features like this appear. So definitely take a look at this. If you go into your settings, you can limit the amount of permissions you give to photos. I myself, depending on the application, I will specifically limit the permissions to maybe an album or like maybe a handful of photos, but not my entire camera roll because my camera roll is 66,000 photos and like 5,000 videos. Like there's no way I want them to have access to all of that. So, what are your thoughts, Daniel?
I actually want to get into this because I think about it from two perspectives. Number one is if you're a content creator, the ability to say, look at the content that's on my phone and give me ideas is something that I actually think is a fascinating way to approach it. I saw someone say that they recently uploaded their camera roll into ChatGPT and said, give me 10 ideas for content for the month of July. And they took those suggestions and started to build content. And I thought, well, that's not something I ever thought of before. So I see it from that angle. But of course, to your point, does Meta need to know anything more about you than they already do? I personally have posted many pictures and videos of myself to my stories, to my reels, to all kinds. So Instagram, Facebook, Meta, they have a lot of my photo and video data already. I don't necessarily want to give them more, but I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you think it's worth the trade off of giving Meta more of your data in exchange for content creation, ideas, tips, suggestions, making reels for you, that kind of thing?
No, is my quick answer to that. I agree with you about the convenience aspect. I would prefer choice on the platform of if I want to be able to leverage opt into this feature, then I want to do it for just a folder of photos, not my entire camera roll. Because if you think about it, in our digital footprint, so much inferences can be made out of our camera roll, like what we take pictures of, what we find meaningful to us, the relationships that we carry, where we've been, what the kind of
Yes.
screenshots, the stuff that we're into. Like you could literally build a digital footprint out of someone just by looking at their camera rolls. On that front, that data would go to advertisers. And as an individual, like I don't want someone else benefiting off of that work that I chose to make that photo. I chose to be in present in that moment to capture that content. No, thank you. But on the flip side, I would like the ability to have just a bucket of photos and content to say, I give you permission to look at this stuff, but not everything. But it's one or the other is the thing. When you opt in, you can't necessarily choose.
Yeah, so I actually did a little test after we talked about Google Photos on the show last week. I actually asked Google Photos, look at the camera or the pictures that I've uploaded recently and give me some content ideas based on them. And it gave me some fantastic suggestions. So again, I do think it makes sense for somewhere where you're uploading your photos and videos already that you feel comfortable with. I know you're an Apple user, so I'm guessing you use Apple Photos and you store your photos
Yep.
in the iCloud, right? And
Yep.
so if there was an AI in there that could generate content for you based on the photos you give into your iCloud, would you use that?
It's already doing it. Apple is already doing that. So if there's something that I don't want in there, then you can choose to say like, do not show X album, like whatever. If it's like, family photos and you're like, I don't want to show that with the public. You could change that, but it does get awkward sometimes. There might be a screenshot or something like an accidental photo and it's like 3 years ago. And it's this like close up of someone that I have no idea who they are. And I'm like, this is not relevant to me. It's already there, and I'm okay with it because it's just limited to me in the context of if I want to use it, it's there.
Right. And to your point, Apple is not selling your data to other advertisers. You pay for however amount of storage you have within the iCloud. So that makes sense. That's a much more, I'll say walled garden, but much more secure approach to having your photos in the cloud and having a service access them.
And I like that. On to piggyback on the walled garden, there's gonna be trade-offs, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So if everyone listening, just remember that.
All right. Well, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about how someone built an ad blocker for real life using Snapchat spectacles and Mark Zuckerberg wanting to ruin your life using AI even more. Stick around. Welcome back. Continuing with the articles that we're discussing, the next one, someone built an ad blocker for real life, and I can't wait to try it. This is coming from Lifehacker. Someone built an XR app for Snapchat spectacles. As you walk around wearing the Snapchat spectacles, if you see a billboard, an advertisement, it blocks that advertisement and just puts a giant square in front of it. Now, this is just a proof of concept right now. It's not out in the wild. You can't download it and use it. But as someone who hates ads, I use a ad blocker everywhere I can. I use a version of TikTok that has no ads. I watch shows via streaming so I don't have to watch commercials. I want that to extend to my real life. So I am all for it. I want to see it working on televisions when I'm sitting in a doctor's office. I don't want to see commercials anywhere. Ashley, what do you think?
I am fascinated by this because I got to see Evan Spiegel, CEO of Snapchat, actually announce the spectacles and really what where they're headed. So it's interesting to see the first use case come out this quickly about using it this way. I do think it's interesting because it's something like this would never ever be able to make it to like market as an actual entity because advertisers would be destroying that on every front absolutely possible. However, I do think there's multi-use applications here. Like, yes, we're talking about advertising, but I'm thinking, extended applications of reducing the, sensory in your environment. So, like, sensory overload can happen very easily, like at conferences, right? So, being able to provide some kind of occlusion to things that are really hypersensitive or distracting, such as ads or billboards, could be very fascinating. But bravo to the person that put this together. That's a really creative use of spectacles.
I love that idea, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it progress. Let's move on to the last story we're going to talk about today. Mark Zuckerberg already knows your life, and now he wants his AI to run it. So,
Woo!
the CEO of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, has been building a team of AI power hires. He's trying to anticipate where is AI going so that he can be there before that everyone else catches up. What the team is working on is building a new generation of AI models that can reason, plan, adapt, the kind that doesn't just answer your questions the way we're used to now with Siri and OK Google, but instead run your life. And since, like we talked about earlier in this episode, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp having so much data about you, they're looking at this next generation to be able to schedule meetings for you, organize your travel and book it for you, already edit your resume by the time it finds a job that it thinks you would like. You don't have to pick your clothes. This AI looks at your calendar and then makes determinations for you. All these kinds of things I think are very exciting, but also, like we talked about before, pros and cons, some drawbacks. Ashley, I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's just, Mark Zuckerberg's quest to be the data lord of everything, which I'm like, I don't know if I can support that. But it's an interesting world that we live in here because I do think people are leveraging ChatGPT more as like their assistant. Like if they were to have a personal assistant or if they were to have like unbiased bestie, right? They're using it as a way to kind of have an extension of themselves. Having AI anticipate your needs, like we are so far away from being able to safely do that. And just like with, there was a case about it. Actually, I'll be able to share this with you later. But there was a case where there was a court that was using predictive models, not in the US, was using predictive models to determine the viability of a who was convicted of a crime to be a repeat offender.
That's Minority Report level stuff here.
Yes, exactly, and it made mistakes. So, it's a slippery slope, so I do have caution there. I think maybe, small steps are awesome, but again, we need to ask ourselves, like, who owns the data and how much autonomy do we have over the agency of our own data? So, interesting things here.
Yeah, I really like the fact that we can have a good discourse about this and
Me too.
not disagree. We can disagree, but also knowing where we each have our own separate views, I think is really enjoyable.
Agreed, and that's what we hope to explore on this show, is that it's okay to disagree. We're gonna have our different opposing opinions, but you know what? We can still have a great conversation about technology and AI, and we love having you along to join us. So that's it for our AI news you should know about this week. You can find us on social media to connect, and we'd love to hear what you think of the show and really how we can make it better. You can find me on Instagram at Ashley R. Coffee 89 and my podcast, Coffee and Code, on Apple Music, YouTube, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Coffee and Code and subscribe to the show to be notified when new episodes go live over there.
And you can find me at Daniel Hill Media on Instagram, Threads, and YouTube. If you like this kind of content, check out my social media news show, the Instagram stories, wherever you get podcasts. And thank you for listening. And come back next week for more AI news you should know about.